get to, I guess, the main attraction. There's been a lot said about Tucker Carlson recently. Of course, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson talked shit about Nick Fuentes, what was it, a couple days ago? And in this shit-talking session, Tucker claimed that he didn't know that his dad was in the CIA until after his dad was dead. After his dad was dead, which is weird because he had said that he knew on video. But people are starting to wake up, finally. People are starting to come around to the fact that Tucker Carlson lies. I would have thought that when he said that demons scratched him up in his bed full of dogs, that would have, maybe set off some alarm bells. Even if you were media illiterate, you would think, oh, this guy, I don't know, something's up with this guy. Or, all the other things that he's done over the years on video. And, but again, people don't have very long memory. People they want to have mainstream representation for some reason. I don't know 100% the psychology behind that. We're going to get into some of the psychology behind why I think they like Tucker, but there's something more. It's not just Tucker. It's that you saw this exact same thing with Trump. You see this all the time with the right wing really, really, really wanting someone in the mainstream to represent them. And they don't understand that that's not possible. It's not possible because your enemy is the system. And so anyone that's mainstream within the system is not going to be on your side. In fact, they're going to be against you because you seek at the very least to dramatically reform the system. That's if you're maybe a little more conservative than I am. At the very least, you want to radically reform the system in ways that would punish the people like Tucker Carlson who have benefited from the system their whole lives. And there's no end in sight in terms of their generational wealth so long as the system is preserved. And look, Tucker Carlson, we're not going to rehash everything, but we are going to rehash some of it, has said as much in his book, Ship of Fools. I've talked about this before. He said that the whole reason why he wrote the book was to ring the alarm bell for the elites, let them know that, hey, the natives are getting restless. If we don't start throwing them some table scraps, the pitchforks are coming out. He said exactly that in interviews talking about his book, and he says that in his book. And we're not going to go, we've gone over that before. One thing I wanted to point out is I remember clearly back in 2019 and 2020, when I was raising these alarms when it came to Tucker Carlson, and a lot of people who are thankfully coming around now were giving me shit for it and saying, some people are still saying the exact same thing. It's literally the same thing. I feel like I'm in this infinite loop of people who don't quite get it yet. They hear what I say. They start saying, oh, you're just a black pill, you're a black pill, you just don't want to win. And then they lose enough times to where they get blackpilled. But then inevitably a new crop of retards come in and they say the same thing over and over. It just keeps happening over and over and over again. But in this cycle, back in 2019, 2020, I did a whole video talking about how subversive Tucker was and how you could pick up the subtlety of his language. And here's the thing. I understand that not everyone does what I do or anything like this. So you don't understand necessarily, or maybe you're not even a writer or anything like that. You don't understand the intention that is involved with language and how if you're a public speaker, as I am, and certainly not with the audience that Tucker Carlson has, but still that's what I do, and that's what he does. And so it's easier, I think, for people like me and other public speakers to see what he does and pick up on these subtleties and understand that when you're doing this kind of a job, you have to be very intentional. You have to be very, very precise with your language because you're trying to convey a certain message. And so anyone that's even remotely good at this job, and look, Tucker's good at what he does, he's going to be super precise with his language and very intentional with his language. And so when he says things, especially if there's a pattern that emerges, then it's very likely that it's intentional, that it is meant to, it's got a motive behind it, and it's very goal-oriented language, And so anyway, I put out a video. I just want to play a clip from it, or it's a couple snips that I threw together from 2020. When I started noticing certain things, certain ways in which Tucker was phrasing things, and just to show you that, like, I've been talking about this a long time. And look, that's not the intention. I actually don't care. Like, I don't want credit. Like, first of all, I wasn't the only one saying this sort of stuff back in 2020. But second of all, it's not about like, I said it first, or I said it before so-and-so, or whatever. I don't care about that shit. It's about people understanding the information. And in fact, if anything, if other people say the same thing and more people listen to them, that's, for me, the way I look at that, that's more of a reflection on me. That's more like, oh, I must not have done that great of a job. If I try to explain this and only, X amount of people absorb it, but someone else says it and like way more people absorb it. First of all, I'm happy because I want that information to get out there, but obviously I got to do a better job. So it's not about that, but it is to show you that there is a long history of Tucker being a gatekeeper and Tucker being playing a specific role for his class, for the elite class. And so here is the clip from a video I put out in 2020. I didn't realize the level of fanaticism that there was around Tucker Carlson. I'm going to play a clip of Tucker Carlson saying that the book White Fragility is just as bad and evil as the Protocols of the Elder Zion. He's saying that this book is really bad and it's full of misinformation and blood libel, just like the Protocols of the Elder Zion.
The most popular book on the left right now is a demented piece of pseudoscience entitled White Fragility. It was written by a wild-eyed racemonger known as Robin DiAngelo. 10 years from now, we'll look back in horror at the thought that so many decent people would read something this vicious and crazy as White Fragility and read it openly in public places with no shame. That's a bad sign. How would you feel if your seatmate on a United flight cracked open the Protocols of the Elders of Zion? You'd be shocked. And yet, thanks to encouragement from Democratic leaders, it is happening everywhere. White Fragility is now required reading in schools and in boardrooms. Corporations are internalizing its message, its sick message.
Now, there are people that are thinking with their dick so hard right now. They watched that clip and through their delusion thought, oh my God, Tucker Carlson is using 4D chess. Where have we heard that before? 4D chess. He's telling people about the Protocols of the Elder Zion. Now they're gonna Google it and read it, and they're all gonna be red-pilled on. When people watch that clip and they come up with this conspiracy theory that, well, he has to talk like that, he has to say that, this is 4D chess. I'm gonna play another clip of Tucker talking about the 9/11 conspiracy theories and how he thinks they're blasphemous.
It is wrong, blasphemous, and sinful for you to suggest, imply, or help other people come to the conclusion that the U.S. government killed 3,000 of its own citizens.
Tucker was just trying to get people to look up 9/11 conspiracy theories. He had to frame it like that. He would lose his job. What, you really expect him to tell people to go Google 9/11 conspiracy, to go Google dancing Israelis? Yeah, right. No, he has to do 4D chess. He has to have this guy on and say how terrible 9/11 conspiracy theories are, so that you then look them up. But he still gave that guy screen time, and so really he's promoting. No, you can't. It's ridiculous. I've seen a lot of praise of Tucker Carlson to the extent where I see people pushing him as a presidential candidate for 2024. Based Tucker, we elected this NBC reality TV show host, and hoping that he would fulfill our wildest fantasies. And because that didn't work out, maybe if we elect this Fox News TV host, we'll finally get all of our dreams to come true. So I was talking about this, 5 years ago. The subtlety of his language in the first clip. Obviously, he's saying that, this is the worst thing in the world, just like this anti-Semitic stuff. And it's, you can just tell, okay, well, now I know. Now that's your benchmark for evil. Your benchmark for evil is this anti-Semitic stuff, huh? And then, of course, the 9/11 stuff. He wouldn't even play the clip that the guy asked him to play of Building 7 collapsing, and then claimed, I didn't even see that video until 2014 when Alex Jones showed it to me. It's like, okay, so were you willfully ignorant, or are you just lying like you always lie? Because Tucker Carlson always lies. He lies all the time. And he's a shill for the establishment, and he always has been. And he's admitted as much. And people forget, this guy's been around a long time. He's, of course, his backstory is, after graduating from Temple University, he went to go apply for the CIA. And they wouldn't take him, even though his dad worked with the CIA. They wouldn't take him. And so instead, he went into media, where he was catapulted to the highest levels almost immediately. First working for a Heritage Foundation run nonprofit, working with William F. Buckley Jr., who basically was the Tucker Carlson before Tucker Carlson. He had the same job. William F. Buckley his job was to de-radicalize the right and keep everything kosher. We've played clips from his show in the past and previous streams where he'll have certain people on, like people talking about immigration, talking about anything that would be considered a little too racist, a little too anti-Semitic, and then he dresses them down on national television. He tries to set the tone for what's acceptable within the sandbox of conservatism, while working with for a bunch of fucking Jews. The Jews defined what neocons were. And the same thing with Tucker Carlson when he worked with the nonprofits that he first worked with. He was basically standing shoulder to shoulder with the people at PNAC, the people that were effectively writing the think tank theories on why we would need another Pearl Harbor to get us into a war with Iraq. And then, wouldn't you know it, we had 9/11. And then after 9/11, of course, he ran cover for anyone or rather, he demonized anyone that suggested that the official story didn't add up. He did these super cringe fluff pieces, like this is when he worked for CNN. This is Tucker on CNN interviewing Britney Spears to promote the war.
You're going to be on the National Mall soon, performing for Pepsi and the NFL, and also to support our troops. A lot of entertainers have come out against the war in Iraq. Have you?
Honestly, I think we should just trust our president in every decision that he makes, and we should just support that, and be faithful in what happens.
Do you trust this president?
Yes, I do.
Wow, that certainly wasn't set up or anything. That's totally organic, I'm sure. So this is the kind of stuff that he would do. And then this, of course, there he is in Iraq right there, hanging out with private mercenaries, really, holding an SKS or AK-47 or something there, incorrectly. And then, stuff like this. I talked about in previous streams how he visited Nicaragua and had connections with the Contras, and how his dad was involved with the Contra scandal. It came up in his interview with that Martyr Maid guy. And what was Tucker Carlson doing when people started writing articles that were not only talking about the illegal, in fact, treasonous weapons deals that the Reagan administration officials were doing with the CIA through Israel to sell weapons to Iran in order to fund the Contras, but the CIA was also doing drug deals. The CIA was doing drug deals. There was a journalist by the name of Gary Webb who wrote a series of articles about this, exposing the connection between the CIA and members of the Contras that were big-time narcotics dealers, and how the CIA helped smuggle drugs into the United States in order to help fund the war against the Sandinistas. And so Gary Webb wrote this series of articles. And where was Tucker Carlson at the time? Where did he work at the time? Oh, he worked at the Weekly Standard with Bill Kristol. The Weekly Standard, which was quite literally the Trotskyite Jew brain center. Like that's literally what it was. That's where he worked. That's where he wrote articles for years. This is from 1996. He wrote this big long diatribe against Gary Webb, and doing using the exact same tactics that he uses today. And he basically tried to shift the framing to one of, oh, you guys don't like black people, right? The black people are just being crazy. Look, it's Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters believes this, and she's a stupid nigger. I believe this story because stupid nigger believing it. And look, it is. Look, it's a lot of black people trying to blame the fact that they smoke crack on the CIA. And yeah, obviously that's fucking stupid, but it's actually not stupid in terms of that is who was supplying the crack. That is how the crack and the cocaine was getting into Los Angeles, was the CIA was running drugs for the Contras in order to fund their war. And so anyway, he writes this big long article, a disgraceful newspaper expose and its fans, and essentially tries to race bait and talks about how it's only a stupid and tries to demonize Gary Webb. Gary Webb, who, he must have been a phony. And I guess that's why he committed suicide a few years later by shooting himself in the head twice. Twice. Yeah, definitely. But I'm sure that's all. It checks out, as people often shoot themselves in the head twice when committing suicide. But anyway. And look, Tucker Carlson, he fully admitted that the people that were on the, in fact, on the time slot that he got, Bill O'Reilly. Tucker Carlson took over Bill O'Reilly's time slot on Fox News. And prior to that, here he is talking about, I guess, his book on C-SPAN, where he says that Bill O'Reilly is essentially an elitist playing a character. He's playing a character on Fox News. He's playing the role of a populist, but that he doesn't actually believe anything that he says. He doesn't actually behave the way that this character on TV behaves. And he says, none of us do. None of us do. He says that Bill O'Reilly's like this crazy elitist in private. Look, I believe all that. I think he's being honest here. But guess what? Tucker took over Bill O'Reilly's job and began to play the exact same role. He just got recast. The Bill O'Reilly, every man's man, the populist on Fox News, was simply recast. It went from Bill O'Reilly to Tucker Carlson. Here's Tucker Carlson prior to getting that gig.
Terrorism in its proper context. Didn't see it as important as it was.
Another quote from your book: Bill O'Reilly's success is built on the perception that he really is who he claims to be. If he ever gets caught out of character, it's over.
That's right. I say before that Bill O'Reilly's really talented. He's more talented than I am. He's got a lot more viewers than I do. He's a better communicator than I am. But I think there's kind of a deep phoniness at the center of his shtick. And again, as I say, the shtick is sort of built on this perception that he is the character he plays. He is every man. This kind of he's not right-wing. He's a populist. This kind of Irish Catholic populist fighting for you against the powers that be. And that's great as a shtick. But I'm just saying the moment that it's revealed not to be true, it's over. The moment he gets caught, slapping a flight attendant on the Concorde for not bringing his champagne fast enough, or barking at, one of his subordinates to take the, brown M&Ms out of my bowl and get me a bottle of Evian, or something like that. The second that makes page 6, it's over, right? Because the whole thing is predicated on the fact that he is who he says he is. And just nobody is that person.
Nobody is that person, including Tucker, who at the time was wearing bow ties and quite literally proclaiming that he was an elitist prior to his now current gig, where he sits in a room with like antlers mounted to the wall, and it's supposed to look like the inside of a fishing cabin, and he wears flannel shirts and talks about how he's the populist and he's the everyday guy, and he always has that puzzled look on his face, like, really, what is this? I don't know what you're talking about. And, oh, that's really weird. Please tell me more. And he's playing a character. He's now been cast as the new Bill O'Reilly. And I, of course, was pointing out back in 2020 the fact that he wore Kabbalah bracelets all the time, and people tried to tell me, oh no, that's just a bracelet that looks exactly like a Kabbalah bracelet that his daughter made him. And by the way, no source for that. I looked everywhere for an article or anything of him saying that, like, oh no, that's just a bracelet my daughter made me. And it's just, no, it's obviously a Kabbalah bracelet. Look at Kabbalah bracelets that celebrities wear. It's exactly a Kabbalah bracelet, and he wore it all the time. So yeah, there's that. But let's just ignore that. you know, that's just, you know, nothing weird about that at all. Nothing strange. And then, of course, I brought up the fact that he's mentioned in the Washington Post article in 2007, before the Pizzagate scandal, talking about Comet Ping Pong and how he loves going there and eating pizza with Donald Rumsfeld.
Con los terroristas.
Do the Harlem Shake.
Devin, Pizzagate's not real. You dumbass. It's amazing. It's basically no different than these libertarians like Styx Hexenhammer that want to sound smart by saying the Satanic Panic was fake. It's like, sorry, buddy, you're right. There's a lot of bullshit that happened because of all the Q-tards talking about Pizzagate like it was some kind of, like Tom Hanks with the pedo tunnels. And yeah, they muddied the waters. You don't think that was intentional? They did the same thing with 9/11. After 9/11, one of the reasons why it was so easy to think that 9/11 conspiracy theories were retarded, and in fact, to some extent, some people still do, because you had all these people talking about fucking mini nukes and holographic airplanes and directed energy weapons and all kinds of stupid shit. And so, yeah, you hear all this fucking stupid shit and you start thinking, oh, that's low IQ retard stuff. But if you're not an idiot and you actually look into it yourself, as I did, in fact, I was one of the people that were one of the first people talking about this stuff because I was digging in those WikiLeaks emails. In fact, I did like the first videos really on Pizzagate. And I didn't put anything stupid about Tom Hanks, pedo tunnels, or any of this stupid shit. It was just either in the emails themselves on the actual the footage. I tried to find it. I have it somewhere. But the actual footage from inside Comet Ping Pong, where they had that weird tranny with the voice changer talking about eating pizza, you'd have to fucking see it. Many of you guys saw that video back in the day. I wish I had that clip because there's no way you watch that and think, oh yeah, that's normal. That's fucking normal. Or even just the artwork inside of Comet Ping Pong that wasn't much better. It wasn't much better than the artwork hanging on the walls of John Podesta's house. There's a lot. Look, by the way, and hilariously, in that last interview that Tucker did with the Martyr Maid guy, he admitted that Pizzagate was real. He just tried to distance himself from it by saying that, oh, I just thought the Podestas liked shitty art because he was basically neighbors with these people. So even Tucker is basically admitting that, yeah, there's truth. Or I'm sorry, I guess James Elephantis was just like this humble pizza owner that hung out with the Rothschilds. Like, right? Is that what it is? Is that what you're going with? The Pizzagate is fake? And just by weird, crazy coincidence, some Q-tard pops off, goes down to Comet Ping Pong, and then shoots off an AR-15 through the wall, and it magically goes through the hard drive and destroys the hard drive on the server that's at Comet Ping Pong. Is that the story we're going with? Because that's what you're saying. But when you're saying that there's nothing to that, that's all just made up, you're basically saying all that stuff. Oh, you didn't know about all that shit because you're a fucking retard? Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, so yeah. What's his involvement with it? I don't know. But I'm just saying he has proximity. That's for fucking sure. But again and again and again, this guy is there to basically try to corral right-wing people into the sandbox of what's essentially the neo-neocon. See, this is what people don't understand. It's like with the ads, the white girl Sweeney ads, right? The jeans. Where it's people are all excited, like, oh my God, I guess we're winning, right? I guess we're winning because they put some fucking blonde, big-titted shiksa in a fucking jeans ad. Oh, that means we're winning. We're finally winning. Oh, racism is over now, and they're gonna deport all the Mexicans because there's some fucking big-titted white bitch in a jeans ad from for a company that was founded by Jews, by not just any Jew, Turbo Jew CEO who quite literally has a Talmud named after him because of how much money he gives to Jews. That guy, right? That guy just he just let a Nazi ad slip through. He wasn't paying attention one day. And Sydney Sweeney, like I'm sure that wasn't like a big expense or anything like that to have an actress like that in your massive campaign that you were pushing. But anyway, people think that they see this shit and they get excited and think they're winning, and that's basically what Tucker's there for. Tucker does the same sort of thing. He's supposed to give you the perception that you're being heard. Put the pitchforks down, Goy. You're being heard. Don't worry, you're being heard. They're shifting. They're trying to adapt to what you'll take. They know. See, don't you understand? I don't understand because it got so crazy in terms of how overused this metaphor was that it became too cliche. People stopped even talking about it, like the boiling of the frog thing, right? Everyone knows this. Everyone should understand this concept because it was been beaten to death. But then all of a sudden, it's like they act like they understand the concept, but they don't. That's what this is. Don't you understand when the heat starts to be too much, they cool it down a little bit. They let you feel like you're winning, so you don't get pissed off and jump out of the fucking pot. But at the end of the day, he's trying to steer you right back into what the neocons define conservatism is. I mean, look, he was pushing gay marriage.
Pretty interesting when you think about it. So this is a bill signing affirming the legalizing once again gay marriage, which most people support in this country. Should people get married if they love each other? Yeah, they should. That's fine. Not that controversial a point at this stage. But here's Joe Biden using that opportunity to promote gender-affirming care for kids. And of course, that means the sexual mutilation of children, cutting the breasts off 15-year-olds.
See, he's playing the same game. He's like, oh, we all agree that, gay marriage is fine. It's, well, we just don't want to be cutting off little kids' breasts. Like that's where it gets too far. See, it's good cop, bad cop. You're willing to accept gay marriage. You're willing to accept the gay marriage poison pill because he's creating a false dichotomy. He's basically good cop, bad copping this whole situation. He's saying that, well, it's either this or it's this, right? It's either gay marriage is fine or, the Democrats want you to trans your kid. And you hear that, you're like, oh, for fuck's sake, I guess I'm fine with gay marriage because that sounds way less bad than sexually mutilating a kid. See, that's what his job is. That's what his job is. So he's basically established for you that, no, the gay marriage, that argument's done. It's fine. Everyone's okay with that now. It's fine. We just don't want to trans kids. So this is what he's always done. This is what he's always fucking done. But anyway, so this is again, the same sort of a thing when it comes to race, trying to corral the young white people who are the natives that are getting restless. Here he is talking to Tim Pool and Charlie Kirk about how we shouldn't have racial identity as white people.
I speak for myself as someone who's 54 and grew up in a totally different country. I don't want to identify as white. I don't even like thinking about that stuff. I like thinking about how people really are. I don't like thinking of them as members of groups.
See, we shouldn't have white identity. That's bad. And he says this sort of thing over and over and over again.
I will say this, if I can just make one prediction. So the United States is becoming non-white. Everyone's excited about it. Or whether you're not excited about it, it doesn't matter. Whites are going to be in the minority. So what that means soon. So what that means is you're going to get at some point, probably in my lifetime, people standing up and saying, I represent white people. I'm the candidate of the white voter.
Right.
And I just want to say on the record that I'm going to tell that person to fuck off.
So there you go. There you go. Here's Base Tucker, though, right? So anyway, again, there's a lot more. I don't want to go over everything. I just wanted to remind people that have apparently a really short memory and don't seem to understand this trick that he plays over and over and over again on video that people have copies of. And for some reason, the goldfish brain, people desperate for a mainstream daddy, they always forget. This is the Tucker we're talking about. And this is the Tucker that, when talking to Candace Owens, acted like he had no idea. He had no idea that his dad was in the CIA.
Native talent. And he's attacking my dad as a CIA, his dad's in the CIA or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's no, untrue. And my father dies, and I learn, actually, was involved in that world. I was completely shocked by it. So no one has to believe me, but that's just a fact.
Right.
Well, we don't believe you, Tucker. Now, this is, Nick tweeted this out, of course. This was him just last week, and his dad died in March of this year. So according to Tucker, he didn't know that his dad was involved in any kind of CIA stuff until after March of this year, right? Well, that's kind of weird. It's a little bit weird, because I seem to know this. I don't know how this is from 2023, and it's on my Telegram history. You can see I posted this exact clip on July 11th of 2023, where I'd watched this interview, and I commented on how funny it was that Tucker Carlson pretended not to know that, well, you'll get to see, he does the Tucker thing. He acts very shocked. He's like, well, you'll see.
Fight and resist the American war machine. They don't stand a chance. Like, why are these terrorists even fighting against the American war machine? And my dad said, they're fighting for their way of life. They want their wife, and they want their children, and they want their society and their language, and they don't want pride flags, and they don't want American bullshit, and they don't want to be told what to do. And they're fighting to be a culture and be a people which is independent in and of itself. Like, they're not the bad guys you think they are. They're people who are like, why are you here? What do you want? We don't agree with that. That's against our holy book. Fuck off. Right? So even there's no such thing as good and bad in any war. And
Who was your father?
My father was a chess master.
Wait, hold on. All right. So Tucker Carlson's dad is CIA, and Andrew Tate's dad is also CIA. And look, just look at how confused. Look at that Tucker look. Like, who's your dad? I have no idea who your dad is. Look at his face. Who's your father? I've never heard of this guy. I've never heard of it. I can't believe that we have so much in common. That who is your dad?
He was a linguist in the CIA.
Yeah, he worked for the CIA. Wow, that's crazy. My dad too. Who would have thought? Look, whatever, right? I'm just saying that's bullshit. The idea that Tucker doesn't know that Andrew Tate's dad is also CIA, give me a fucking break. So he's a liar. He's a liar, and we know that he's a liar because here he is once again. You guys remember the Putin interview?
King of whom?
With the backing of CIA, of course. The organization you wanted to join back in the day, as I understand. We should thank God they didn't let you in. Although, it is a serious organization. I understand. My former vis-a-vis in the sense that I served in the First Name Directorate, Soviet Union's intelligence service.
That's Putin letting him know that he knows that Tucker used to want to be in the CIA, And here's Tucker himself claiming in June of last year that he knew that his dad was in the CIA.
And so when I applied to CIA, and I've taken a lot of crap, including from Putin, like, oh, you're from a CIA family. Well, yeah, obviously my father worked in conjunction with CIA. I mean, that's what that is. And I tried to join the CIA, but I'm not being false about it.
You are, though. You're lying. So why anyone would still take Tucker Carlson seriously is beyond me. I really don't understand why the Goyim fall for these tricks. I mean, get me wrong. He's pretty good at it. He is pretty good at it. If you're not someone that pays attention, you're not someone that researches these people, if you're not someone who asks like, who is this guy? To you, he's just like an actor in a movie that you're watching. And so you're not actually wondering about Tom Cruise. You're wondering about the character he's playing. That's what you're interested in, right? Well, that's kind of the same thing. I'm sorry to tell you. That's kind of the same thing with Tucker Carlson. All right. Tucker Carlson he's an actor. He's an actor and he's performing. When he does these interviews, he's performing. When he does his TV shows, he's performing. It's all a fucking performance. He's playing a character. It's like when I did the long dissection, I guess, of his interview with Martyr Maid. And I showed all the times that he did his shtick, as he likes to say. He did his shtick. He pretended to be the everyman. He pretended to be the guy who didn't understand, well, who's Bill Barr and who's this guy? I don't understand. What are you talking about? He obviously knew, he was asking questions that he knew the answer to, which is fine if you're interviewing someone to do that. But the difference is he acts like he doesn't know the answer to it. He's dishonest with the way he's conducting these interviews because he wants to be relatable to the audience, because he wants the audience to feel comfortable with him and to feel as if that he's not the elitist that he is just some guy hanging out in his fishing cabin wearing a flannel t-shirt. But that's not him. It's never been him. He comes from fucking super money. We're talking millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. And he's in a class of people that most of you will never even meet. And he's played this role his entire career. He's played this role going all the way back to the Weekly Standard. And there's even more clips than this. We're not going to play them. We're going to go on to the normal part of the show. I just wanted to reiterate that he is a gatekeeper. And there's lots of evidence of this. And if you don't understand that yet, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. You're going to get tricked. Now, by coincidence, or not really by coincidence, kind of by design, but by coincidence, one of you guys actually recommended this. I didn't copy and paste who it was, but I did copy and paste this. Proof that I used my notes, by the way. Someone brought up a Outer Limits episode from 1996 that I decided to take a look at. And when I watched it, I realized, wow, it's actually a pretty good metaphor for how Tucker Carlson and people like him and the gatekeepers out there like him, how they operate. And I thought it'd be perfect for tonight's show. So we're going to take a look at this Outer Limits episode. It's called The Deprogrammers.